Warning, the following program contains scenes of graphic stupidity among two lifelong friends who seek to put on a podcast, but because of the nature of who they are, end up embarrassing each other. Hey everyone, what?
We haven't known each other our whole lives. We met when we were like 20.
It's fine. It's fine. No one cares. You don't need to get these things right.
I suppose. It is Impractical Jokers.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another great episode of your favorite TV podcast, TV Guys. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we are just a couple of jokers, you and me. I'm a joker, I'm a smoker, I'm a midnight toker, all of them.
I still bet the one time I had a really interesting joke to play to you, I thought of it too late and it didn't work out when I was going to try to get your wife to come slap you during the podcast.
Which is nice. Well, it's okay. She slaps me plenty, outside of the podcast.
But that's in your private life. We need to have the slap on video so that I can upload it.
It seems weird. Oh, my wife just casually slapping. Just casual abuse from my wife. That's okay. Everything's fine.
Anyways.
We're talking about Impractical Jokers because guess what? It's the end of March, and you know what happens at the very beginning of April? It's April Fool's Day. My son Jack, he loves pranks. I've talked about him before. I don't know if I've talked about him on the podcast, but I've talked to him to you about like how he's like Winston from New Girl with pranks, where it's either way too big or way too small. So I might have shared this story already, but last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, he's like, for April Fool's Day, he's like, I've got a great prank for Mom. I think that I should get ketchup out and just pour it all over myself, and then you can go say, hey, Mom, Jack's dead. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of reasons that we're not going to do this prank. So we didn't end up doing it. I don't remember what he ended up going with, but it was one of these like really, really tiny ones. Oh, no. Then he was like, there's like, okay, I got it. So I'm gonna when Elijah's going to the bathroom, I'm gonna sneak in and put a grape in the toilet so that when he gets done, I can be like, Elijah, you pooped a grape or something.
The fake blood reminds me. So season 42 of Survivor just started, and I'm watching it, and I'm guessing you're not.
I'm not. No, I stopped a long time ago. I think I made it to like the first All Stars, and that's it.
Right. It's not the best season, but one thing I really like, they're really adding so many more twists this season. So one thing they had is like there's 3 tribes, and it's the thing where like every tribe has to go go into the jungle and grab something and come back. They had this thing where one tribe got there and it says you have to wait until the person from doing this part of the challenge from each tribe gets there, and when they get there, they have to make a choice whether they're going to like all get an advantage together or else just not. And then there's a whole like to convince your tribe that this part of the running of the jungle took a long time. There's a bucket of mud and dirt and a bucket of fake blood that you can put on yourself to make it look like you've gone through a whole ordeal. And it's like, okay, I get the mud. Maybe you had to crawl through something, but why blood? And one of the guys, he like takes it and smears fake blood all over his chest. Like, then he come back and then someone in his tribe's like, they're covered in blood. Like, why?
I had to wrestle a bear. He was terrible.
And I thought it was really funny, but it probably wasn't supposed to be funny.
That's great. I also think that is like, where does your mind go in that? What did we have to do on this season? Yeah, you're going to have to kill something before the season's out. If you have any shot at winning $1 million. And what, do they think that they're going to bring that up as like kind of almost their own form of virtue signaling to prove like they deserve $1 million? Like, yeah, remember that one challenge? I killed a thing, so I deserve the $1 million more than this other guy next to me. What are they going with?
Yeah.
We should do that in real life, you and me. We should have our own Survivor. We should gather people together and do our own Survivor, but super low budget and terrible, and like just drop them off in the woods, and then we don't give them any money at the end of it. I think that's called kidnapping.
I think it's called the episode Survivor Man of The Office.
There's also that. Either way, I think there's probably some felonies, so we'd have to have them sign waivers, and then we're good.
Yeah. Well, then it's not kidnapping. Then it's,
then it's
consenting torture.
I well, I saw like a YouTube video where someone like went down the how legal exactly is Squid Game, because in Squid Game they all actually sign on to be a part of these games and they sign waivers and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, so they're consenting to be in these games, but it's like that's not going to excuse them from any legal repercussions. So like I watched like the kind of the how could you possibly make this legal sort of video that someone did. Short answer, you can't. Nowhere in the world, not even in international waters, because as soon as you get back from international waters, you'll get arrested for it. Just want to let everyone know, unless you're in case you're planning your own real life Squid
If you
Game.
stay in international waters the rest of your life, though.
But even then, there's apparently like there are the factions that can go into international waters to deport back to wherever. Like they have rules in place, and I didn't realize that, but I don't know who this is. So you can't even do that. You can't even just stay. You can't be a pirate. No, I'm sorry.
This might be our longest tangent ever.
We're just ruining dreams left and right. But if these are your kind of dreams and we're ruining them, you might need to seek some help, because none of this is healthy to think about. But you know what is healthy to think about? Impractical Jokers, because it's a great show. And so we are going to talk about so Impractical Jokers. If you have clicked onto this episode and you're listening, you probably know at least the format of Impractical Jokers, but I'm just going to real quick hit you with it. So every single episode, it's just like these challenges these guys do to see how far they can like mess with the other guys. And, if you don't do what they're feeding you to do through a microphone in your ear, then like you'll get like a thumbs down, and then the one who has the most thumbs down at the end of the episode, they get a punishment. So the punishment is the other guys come up with something for them to do, and they can't say no to this. They have to go through with it. And there have been some great punishments in the history of Impractical Jokers. But Brian and I decided, what are some punishments? Because like there's some that you're like, that might be actually a little fun. That might be a little silly. If I could lean into that wouldn't be so bad. But there are some punishments you're like, I do not want to do that. So we compiled the list of like, what are some punishments that we would be like the most no way, off the table sort of punishments. And Brian, you said that you had a lot. I have like a top 3, but they're actually like 3 different categories, and then I have more for each one on that category.
Mine is this combination of like the worst ones and also just what I think like the best interesting ones to watch are. One of these things I think I would do. One of these I could absolutely see you doing, no problem. We'll get to that.
The Q sheriff one. Because that one would actually be fun, minus the dung. He gets thrown into horse poop at one point, and like that's like ew. But that's the worst part of it. The rest of it is him kind of being in an action movie, even though he's the one getting beat up in this western town, and they're all using these fake glasses to hit over his head and throw him through a fake window. And I'm like, what part of this is a punishment? This would be fun.
Yeah, I got to share. I'll start off with the first one that came to mind, like without really looking it up. And I'll start with a little bit of a performance. I'm sure, Matt, I'm surprised if this isn't on your list already.
Yeah.
Dead butterflies, butterflies. What could be better than a dead butterfly? You remember that one?
It's amazing how often they get these guys to like make up songs. Like they've done the make up songs a couple different times. And like Sal, it's usually with Sal, because Sal is good at like just coming up with stuff off the fly. Like there's an Imagine Dragons one where him and Joe had their own band, and Saul was pretty much the one coming up with the songs. And Joe was just playing like drums and doing drum solo stuff. But they were opening act for Imagine Dragons, and they were terrible.
Yeah, but this one, so they tell Sal with no preparation, you're gonna go out into a baseball game and in front of millions of fans, or no, not millions, but a lot of fans. And when he gets out there, they're gonna announce what he's gonna do with like, now Sal Vulcano is gonna be singing a song he wrote called Butterfly Crime Scene. And then he has to make up this song to sing in front of baseball fans called Butterfly Crime Scene. He made up what I just saying. There's a little bit more to the song, but it's just like, how embarrassing would that be? First of all, be on a microphone at all in that situation, like live. Like we record this just between Matt and I, recording
Yeah.
live in front of a stadium of people, having to sing a song you made up, let alone a song called Butterfly Crime Scene to baseball fans.
See, for me, for punishments that I wouldn't want to do, no, like public speaking ones would really be on here. The closest I would have would be like the ones that were intentionally cringe, like Sal giving the best man speech. Although he wasn't best man, but he was giving a speech at a wedding to a couple that he didn't know. The couple was in on it, but the guys wrote like a really awkward, cringy speech. So it's like it takes the public speaking aspect and elevates it a lot. So there's a lot of people that like public speaking or coming up with a song on the fly, that's punishment enough. But then to like make it intentionally painful, or like they have him Sal again, they have him do a comedy set, but intentionally bomb and intentionally be as bad as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be a lot harder than simply like, I'm gonna try and make up a song here, or I don't remember if it was a punishment or not, or just part of a thing, but I thought like in the first season they also have him at a ball game where Sal's doing the "Let's Get Sexy" chant.
Oh yeah,
was that a punishment? Because I
don't
think that was
know.
a punishment.
That was not as bad though.
Yeah, exactly. First season, if you look at first season punishments versus any other seasons, you're like, this is it. That's the punishment. This is like easy compared to some of the other stuff that they did.
All right, Matt, what's one of your categories?
So one of my categories is pain, plain and simple. So that's like that hit my number 3. If we're gonna have like a top 3 of this, my number 3 would probably be the one where Murr went to like a piercing parlor, and they were spinning this wheel.
Yep,
like every time he'd get something wrong, he'd have to spin the wheel, and that was what would get pierced. And I think there was like something wrong with the weight of the wheel because it got nipple twice in a row. So I had to get both of his nipples pierced, and just watching it, I had pain myself. It was really hard to watch. I'm like, I definitely couldn't do this. If you're looking for any like punishment that are just strictly pain, most of the time it's Murr. For some reason, Murr's the one that gets like the pain ones.
Or the uncomfort. This one is kind of pain, kind of embarrassing mix, where he had to get a live prostate exam in front of a crowd of people.
Yep, that is one of the honorable mentions for the pain one. I don't know if you could specifically call this pain, but I definitely think it would be the uncomfortability of it. There's another one and he got that prostate exam like another time too, another. I kept popping up because just kept getting his prostate checked. But there was another one where they shot his mouth full of Novocaine.
Yeah.
And then they made him give this presentation about food, and then to also like eat this food in front of everyone. And it's like, that is so uncomfortable that like, there's a reason why dentists will only numb one side of your mouth. They won't do both sides because it's like you could easily start chewing on your tongue without realizing it. And they just gave him so much in all parts of his mouth, and just him struggling to get through a presentation and then to even eat or drink the stuff afterwards. You felt so bad for him. And it's one of those, again, the empathy, like it hurts to watch.
I don't know what to say for that one. I don't think any of mine.
Other ones?
Not really not that would fit into the pain category. So maybe we'll go through your categories, and then I'm sure some of mine will fit into your categories. And then we'll see whatever.
Sounds good. I'll throw you one more on this honorable mention list. Is there was a time they hooked up, and you might have seen these videos online where they get like these ways to emulate a pregnant woman in labor, and they give that to Q at one point. So Q doesn't realize that he's going to be doing that. He just knows he's giving a presentation to a group of pregnant women, and he's supposed to be some sort of doctor or someone renowned about like getting through pregnancy. And then they bring that out. I was like, no, this is the real punishment. You getting hooked up to that. And his reaction is hilarious. It's great, but I'm like, no, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to be forced into having contractions. Any of you ladies who have ever given birth, hats off to you, because you are no thank you for me. I for those reasons, I'm out.
All right.
Why are you uncomfortable, Brian? It's a normal part of human life.
I was
giving
thinking
birth.
Yes, but I'm saying like you're acting like you have the option. You're opting out of giving birth.
I am. I do have the option.
What are you,
I've
Arnold
been given this
Schwarzenegger?
option. Yeah. If if it's a boy, I'm going to call him Junior. If it's a girl, I'm going to call her Junior. It's a good movie. I like Junior.
All right. What's another category?
Oh, okay. So my next category here, this one. So my number one category is probably going to be the one where the most things fit for both of us. But my number two is like fear based.
Okay.
So there was one where it's like just I felt so bad for him because I also am afraid of spiders. But they tie down Q in this warehouse, and they put who's definitely afraid of spiders, and they put spiders all over his body. All these tarantulas. Now I know tarantulas are technically harmless to us, but it doesn't matter if you're afraid. It doesn't matter when you have a fear of them. I don't care. You can be telling yourself, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm safe. But no, it is scary. I couldn't do that. See, I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm not deathly afraid of spiders. Like maybe not, I'm not maybe as scared of spiders as you, but you're talking about a tarantula as big as your fist. That's different than like you look up and you see a spider in the corner of your house. Like that's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not as terrified of spiders as I am as like claustrophobic. Like that's my number one fear. I could not, if I was on this show and they did a punishment for confining me in a space, I would have to say no and quit. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, in this one too, like this is kind of mean, extra mean. They tell him, yeah, we're gonna give you like a safe word, pumpernickel, and then like, yeah, we're just gonna ignore it. And then he like as soon as he says pumpernickel, 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 it's like you're a grown man yelling pumpernickel.
that was really funny. I mean, you feel bad for him still, but they're just laughing. I love that quote.
So you're talking about fear based.
They did the same thing with Sal, though.
Oh, that's right. But if it was kittens, I don't feel bad for that.
No, I don't. I don't either. I know you're afraid of Sal, but still, like, no. Come on, you're fine.
Yeah, but you can't talk about fear, and I'm sure this is on your list without the big Murr one with skydiving. I just watched that one today because he nearly quit the show. He came close to quitting, I think. That's the deal they have is if you ever quit a punishment or refuse a punishment, you quit the show.
Yeah. You didn't see it too much on the actual episode, but Q a number of times before he jumped was willing to change the punishment for Murr after doing the reveal. Like for him just to have the stress of possibly going up there, Q was like, I think that's good enough of a punishment, but he was overridden by Joe and Sal. And so obviously he went. I felt so bad for him. That was one of the few ones I was like, I don't enjoy seeing him. I enjoy the punishments where they like lean into it. Like Murr's vampire gospel choir one was fantastic because Murr eventually was like, you know what? I'm just going to own it. And it was so much fun to see him actually enjoy what he was doing on stage.
Yeah.
But this one, I had no fun in watching him do that.
But looking back, I think Murr is like okay with it now after the fact. I mean, it is of course then it's one of his tattoos, which might come up later, but it's definitely become an experience. So I've never skydived. The closest thing I did was the ripcord at Valley Fair once, which even that is creepy because you are free falling for a little while.
Yeah, it's that feeling in your stomach that that doesn't go away. I don't think I'll ever be able myself to do skydiving. Maybe there's this sort of thing with like roller coasters or even like for me for performing in front of people, it's the right beforehand before I go out there that like that's the hardest part. Once like when I'm performing, once I'm out on stage, all of my fears go away. But right before I go on stage, I'm nervous. So it'd be the same thing with like skydiving. I'd probably not be afraid with the adrenaline pumping through me. But before you jump out of the plane, forcing yourself to do that I don't know if I could make that decision.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I did the ripcord, but I don't know if I could do actual skydiving. I'd like to think that I could, but who knows?
The other one that I put in this category, and this is way low on the list in this category, but it's still number 3. I'm not super afraid of sharks, but I don't really want to be around them.
More Murr again.
Murr, no, yeah, they're so mean to Murr. But Murr had to swim with sharks. Now he wasn't in a shark cage, but still, it doesn't make it easier when you're afraid of them and it's like that far or that close to you. And I don't know if you've seen videos, but I've seen videos of sharks tear apart cages. That wouldn't have happened there. I guarantee it wouldn't have happened. But still, you get a fear of it. And then they unattach the cage and let him like they drag the cage behind the boat when they sail away.
Yeah.
That, they're so mean to each other. It's terrible.
Yeah.
All right. So before I get to my top one, here's one that I think you might have some in that I don't, because I can handle humiliation. I mean, I live as me and I say things as me all the time. So I'm used to being humiliated. So I didn't have any that I'm like, oh, I couldn't do the humiliation. But I think you mentioned the tattoo punishment. I think that would fit right in with the category of just abject humiliation for people, is having to have that permanence. Murr had a lot of these humiliating things, stuff like that. What do you have any that would be strictly humiliation?
Yes, and it is Murr again. I feel like Murr is like the most punished, or at least the most memorable punishments. When they had him oiled up and then they had him talk to his childhood TV crush, Danica Patrick. Did you see that one?
I did see that one.
Yeah.
That's a funny one. I like that. And of course, Danica's in on it.
Yeah, but she's still leaning into it and like making it super awkward. I mean, you couldn't put her in that situation without her being into it. She'd be like, "What is the show? I'm leaving." But I mean, have him in like a tiny Speedo and all of a sudden you're sitting there interviewing your childhood TV crush. It's like that, I think, is extreme.
And then to have him like share things from it, like, oh, I used to make out with a poster of you. That's weird. You would never think that you would have to reveal that to your childhood crush, but he did. Speaking of stuff that he revealed, Murr also would make this list for his lie detector punishment.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that punishment. That was a lot of fun. But I mean, again, it's that humiliation. He's brought in front of like all these people from his childhood, like from his high school that they all went to school together, including when he was a teenager, had a crush on the Spanish teacher, and she's there in the audience. So like they ask him, did you ever have a crush on so and Mrs. whatever? And he's like, see, and of course, everyone like but what's hardest about that is that they also brought in his ex from like when he's a teenager, and you can tell, like when you see his ex's reactions, you can tell there was some baggage there still that hurts her. I'm like, oh, that's hitting too close to home. That's too real. Come on, guys.
Well, one that's, I don't know, it's kind of in the humiliation category, but also kind of just like, I don't even know what, super awkward. Do you have where they had made made Q be the baseball dad?
Oh, okay. So that one I would put in my top category, which is cringe. Cringe and humiliation, I feel like are different.
Yeah.
There's overlap, but it's very different. And
should we save that one then, or just talk about it now?
Well, we can talk about it unless you've got other. I don't know how many other humiliation ones you've got.
They put Q at like a little league baseball game, and they had him like pretend he's the father of this little like 7-8-year-old daughter, and the little girl was in on it, and she's all saying, crying like, "Daddy, I don't want to play anymore." And he had to be like super mean, like, "You're embarrassing me. Get out there. Like, you're not here to make friends." And like basically being like the worst parent. And everyone around him just feels so bad for this little girl, thinking that like her dad is the worst.
When she's at bat and you want daddy to love you, right? Like, oh man. And poor Q, because like he knows how bad he's coming off. He realizes how terrible this is and how damaging that would be if this was a real parent doing that to a real kid. So the way that looks, like you're with some of these punishments, they're lucky that they don't get like clocked or hurt in the middle of it. And I think that's part of this cringe too, is that if you're doing it right, probably there's going to be one person at least that's going to want to fight you by the time you're done with it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right.
So my top one then, number one for cringe and just this would be the number one I don't want to do at all. It was so painful, but it was so simple. Sal was at a casino, and during bingo night,
Oh
they
yeah.
made it so that every time a number was called, he'd have to say bingo. Now, there would be, for a typical bingo, you can get anywhere between 20 to like 40 numbers called. So you have a guy that's stopping everything for at least 20 numbers, if not a lot more. And is like, they eventually security took him out in one of the behind the scenes things. They were saying it was like after 47 minutes or so. So it's like 47 minutes of just one card, and this guy kept pausing everything, and everyone could see the card too. They could see that it was nowhere near the bingo. They'd show that on the screen every time he'd call out bingo. And so like people were getting so angry because there's people who's like, this is their chance. Like, you're messing with their money, you're messing with their chance to strike big, you're messing with something that they do to relax themselves after a long week or something like that. And all these people were so livid at Sal. It was, I've heard him say that it was one of the worst punishments. I don't know if it still is at this point and how long they've been doing, but for a while it was the worst punishment he ever had to do, and for good reason.
And kind of similar to that, do you have on your list the one where Joe has to interview the biker gang?
That's, I don't have it on my list, but I found that fun. I know that there's some cringe in it of like the, oh my gosh, he's gonna die, they're gonna kill him sort of behavior. But he handled it really well. He handled it like a pro, and he just can't. It's an expose. It's an expose.
Well, I didn't watch the whole thing. Other than the beginning, it's like, what sound does a motorcycle make? It make vroom vroom. It's like all these like hardened biker gangs. Like, can you guys do that with me? Let's all go vroom vroom.
See, those were the silly ones, but then like he'll get into stuff of like, you know, really offending him. Like he kept calling them a gang, and they're like, we're not a gang, we're a cyclist club. And then he would say stuff about like, you know, he accused one of them of being a snitch pretty much. And then at the very end, to relieve the tension, he asked if they would give him a wedgie for like, that was the final question. And they're like, well, yeah, we're happy to do that. The most relaxed that they had was he asked a question about like, what's your favorite Katy Perry song or something like that, just completely out of the blue. But then when it was like, that one about her kissing the other girl is pretty good, like, yeah, that's a biker answer.
I don't really know if I have anything else that fits into the cringe category. I have some other random ones.
Speaking of Joe, how about when he was, and I don't remember who the baseball player is, but there's a baseball player who's signing baseballs and then throwing up to the crowd, and Joe's challenge or his punishment is he has to try and get every single ball. And so he has to also like manipulate his way into doing that, and like, you know, stealing it right out of the hands of like kids, because there's kids that are there trying to get these balls. And so have you seen that one?
I haven't. That sounds
oh my
really
gosh,
crazy,
it's so painful, because there's one where there's like this little, like, he at another time in it, he's standing next to like this little girl, like 4-year-old girl, and her mom is like holding her. She's, you know, just holding her in her arms, so she's that small. And so Joe acts like he's gonna get the ball for her because she was trying to get a ball, and he's like, oh, let me. And the baseball player's in on it, so he knows to try and like get balls more close to Joe so that he has the chance to steal it. So he throws the ball up to Joe, and instead of giving it to this girl, he puts it in his bag, he starts walking away, and the mom explodes, and she's in tears and yelling at him, and she's like, you can't do that to her, you can't do that to a little girl. I'm just like chewing him out, and it is, and he's kind of like stands there, and then all of a sudden he's like, what do we do here, fellas? To them, the microphone, like, how do we fix this one? So like that was such a painful one of everyone being so mad at him. So those are all the ones I couldn't do. I like there's another one, like a Murr one, where, do you remember the one where he's not allowed to give change back?
Yeah.
That's not quite as bad as the baseballs. What were you gonna say? You were about to embellish.
No, I was say that. I was just basically that. Like, I don't even know. That was the worst one, because like I think this one guy, he's like, I don't have any change. The guy just grabbing more stuff. He's like, oh, I thought it was a tip. A tip for what?
And it there's not quite the same level of tension with that one as there is some of these other ones. People maybe are a little more laid back, but there still is like a no, give me this money back. You're gonna give me this money.
Oh,
And
there's one where I think it was Q. They set up Q as saying you're going to be the bouncer at this club, and everyone's giving him the $5 cover charge. Then they say, "Okay, go enjoy the show." He's like, "Am I getting punished anytime soon?" And then the band announces, "Hey, there was some guy that was taking cover charges, but this is a free show, so he just ripped you off." And then the mob of people is like, "Where's my money back?" And
yeah, so they all finally find him, and it's not like it's a big auditorium. It's like a bar, like club type atmosphere. So it's a smaller room. It's still like 200 people maybe, but he can't hide for long. So they all swarm him, and they find, and the guys are like, all right, we've got to wait for you to give them their money back. And they're like, check behind the bar, and there's like a bag of quarters, and so he gives them all their $5 back in quarters. But yeah, like when you're in a mob with that, they I'm sure they had security of their team really, really close to him, because like something can happen in a split second, and they've got to be that close.
With that, like, what did Q think the punishment was going to be? Because obviously there was the big reveal where he didn't know that he was the fake. I mean, you think he would start to pick up on that when he's taking all the money, because he even said, like, am I going to get punished soon? So he had to be thinking, like, when is the other shoe going to drop? When am I going to get punished? So what did he think the punishment was going to be?
Yeah, I'm curious where he thought it was going, because absolutely, like, the punishments, they're punishments. They're not like, oh, just do something like that. That's small potatoes.
I bet he thought he was going to get called up to like sing with a band or something.
Yeah. Oh, here's another good Q1 is for this category is when they were in Los Angeles, and they go to Universal Studios in Hollywood, and they're riding the tram tour, and he's instructed that he has to pull the stop button, because there's like an emergency stop thing for the tram tour, that if someone is having a medical emergency and they have to get like an ambulance out, they need to have a chance to get off this ride. And so he's pulling it, and the whole tram has to stop, and the tour guide asks like, okay, so, and it's like 5 cars long, so he has to walk all the way to the back car where Q is, so it takes like 3 or 4 minutes each time they stop. And then he goes back there and asks him what's going on, and Q's like, what time does the park close? They give him the question to ask, and it's a really non-emergency one, and people are getting fed up. And the tour guide, even like, because he's in on it, he amps up of being like, if we have to stop another time, we will not be able to get to certain parts of the tour, we'll have to skip those. And so, like, of course he keeps going, and eventually to help him out, they kick him off of that, and they have security.
They did announce to us that said that once this is over, all the passengers, we're going to give them all like VIP passes and whatnot to make up for it. So at least that's coming at the end, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what are some of the miscellaneous ones you've got that maybe I didn't have the right category for you?
Well, I think it's not often you have like callbacks or sequels, but you have 2 back-to-back ones, not back-to-back, they're like seasons apart, with Murr's hair. But first, they shave his eyebrow, like they shave all of the hair off his head, eyebrows, hair, face, stubble, and they make him take his driver's license picture as this complete hairless, balding man. So that's why, like, it was for a season. So I didn't see that one. And when I was watching for a while, I was like, why is there a string of episodes where Murr has no eyebrows? This looks weird. It's because of this punishment. But then later on, they do the opposite. Q gets a haircut. So Q always had this long, shaggy hair until about halfway through. So when he decided to get his haircut, they saved his hair, made his hair into a wig, this nasty wig of Q's actual hair. And they made Murr wear it for an entire season. He had to wear this nasty, smelly wig. And then that one was at the end. Did you watch the military one?
I did. Oh, man, I felt so bad.
Yeah, we'll get to that one too. But part of that finale was, it was the end of season. Q could finally take off the wig. And they had this big, like...
Murr could.
Murr could take off the wig. It's like military funeral type, whereas the wig was marched off into the distance by like these guys playing bagpipes in uniforms.
Yeah, there were some, like, so kind of the general topic for us is, what are some that you wouldn't want to do? But we wanted to also hit on some that are specific to the Jokers, because like they do some stuff that is really good and really like I wouldn't say it's inside joke because we're in on the joke,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really like stuff that isn't universal for us. Like if one of us had to do the bingo challenge, that could be universal. That would be terrible for anyone. But then there's ones like they did this episode, and this was part of a challenge where they're doing like this gotcha nose thing. And so for part of the challenge, they had Sal like to one up the other guy, climbs up onto this statue and pulls the nose off the statue. Doesn't actually pull it off, but acts like he has the nose of the
Yeah.
statue. And so like he's like, yeah, I one upped you. I had the biggest gotcha nose possible. Well, they got a little bit of slap on the wrist because he climbed onto a statue and that's federal property. And it's like, don't do this again. Kind of like a cease and desist sort of thing. Don't ever do that again. That was the extent of it. But then they're like, this is a prime opportunity for a punishment. So then they let it go a little bit longer. They didn't tell Sal that it was resolved. And then they did one where they had a court summons with Sal and had him come before this actress, but she was representing like the federal government and kind of like we might shut your show down if because of this thing, and this is a bigger deal than we ever thought. And so then even then they don't tell him that they that this is part of his punishment. They let him believe that the show is in jeopardy. And so one of these times when they're out filming, they're actually filming his punishment, where right before they're going to do what their challenge is, they have people pull up and like, nope, we're shutting you down. Your permit to film has been denied. You can't film any more Impractical Jokers in New York. And so, Sal's like, oh, are you kidding me? This is so stupid. And then they reveal, we've been screwing with you for like a year and a half. Like, I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a long time that they've been doing this punishment.
That's a good punishment.
It was a great punishment. Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah. And we can't not mention Murr getting legally married to Sal's sister.
Yeah, and that's another one. That's not universal. That's strictly for them. And they actually got married. Like they annulled it afterwards, but they legally were married for like however long that
a day or so. Yeah,
signing. Something like that, yeah.
I'll be saying earlier that he felt bad at the military one because it's like a live show for military troops. At the end, they took like a military tank and they blew up Sal's car or Q's car.
That was the first car he ever bought with his own money, and so it was like, I hate that because like I understand the sentimental value you put on things that are special to you. They had another one that it wasn't as bad as that, but there's like, they were destroying some of their possessions. Murr and Sal both lost, and they had to have their stuff destroyed by these monster trucks. And so Sal like had a video. Someone built an arcade cabinet, like a pinball machine, of an Impractical Jokers for Sal and gave it to him. So he has this one of a kind. There's no other thing like this. It was built specifically for him, and they get it out of his house and they destroy it in front of him. And I'm like, that would suck. I would be so mad to lose something like that.
Yeah. The only other one this is not a hard one. I could say said I would do this. You would absolutely do this. Is the one where they have Joe at the gym and he goes around staring at people. And at one point they say like, look at the top of the trash can. There's a sandwich that we wrapped up. So he goes and pulls a sandwich out of the trash can and is eating like a sub sandwich, like 3 inches from someone on a treadmill. Like,
man, I love how Joe will lean into some of these. Like one of his first punishments was in the first season where it's like you go into the bathroom and then you have to get people's attention from the bathroom in like this, either like a deli or a coffee shop or something, that they're out of toilet paper. So he goes the full amount, like he swings the door wide open. So like he's on the toilet. They're all trying to enjoy meals or coffees or whatever, and he's screaming and like, I need some toilet paper, and then like people are avoiding eye contact with him for good reason. He's like, ma'am, I know you can hear me. I need toilet paper. I have an emergency here. And he's just like embracing it and going all out. He's so good at doing that. Did you see the table one where like he has to pile drive like 6 tables?
Oh yeah,
are giveaway tables.
Because he says,
Oh.
like there are among all these tables, there are 4 that are breakaway tables. You have to just start body slamming them at random until you get all the fake ones. Because I said the people at the fake tables are in on it, but the people at the real tables are not, and you don't know which one's which. You have to start body slamming people's dinner tables.
And so that means, yeah, he has to body slam a lot of real tables as well. So this guy who's like, "Hi, I'm the manager here," and then just jumps onto the table, onto your food as you're trying to eat, like that, and he commits to it, and that's a hard thing to commit to. I think he even got hurt in doing it, especially the final one, because like there's a ladder at one point, and they're like, "Well, this one." We're doing this one for last. So there's a ladder next to a table. He's like, well, pretty clear what I have to do. He climbs up the ladder, jumps off the ladder like it's a WWE thing, smashes into the table, and takes a little bit to get up. But man, the restaurant full of the people that didn't know what was going on, their reactions was so great. I loved that.
Yeah. There's one that was it's not a punishment, and it wouldn't have been that bad. It's just a little mishap that happened. It was they were doing challenge with Murr, and I think he was at the top of the Empire State Building, and they somehow they got his binoculars, and the thing was they were gonna put the black on his binoculars, so that way he puts up to his eyes, and there's like black circles around his eyes, and they did it. Yep. He did it to him, and like there's no marks on his eyes. Why is this prank not working? Turns out that one of the crew members behind the scenes didn't know that was set up like that. And I forget it was like an assistant or something. She put that on her eyes. So then this backstage crew member from Practical Jokers has like the marks that were meant for Murr, and they called Murr back, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." It's like to see like that prank was meant for me.
I love it. I find it funny too. We must have great relationships with our prospective parents, because we have not mentioned any of the punishments where like they bring parents in, because there's a number of times they'll bring parents in, like Q has to explain sex to his parents, or Murr had to explain, I think, IT to his parents or something. No. Sal had to explain something to his dad, but like had to go through his phone and show his dad stuff from his phone and and reveal things from his life to his dad, things that you don't necessarily talk to your dad about.
Wasn't it one of them had to watch a series of videos where it was like set up as if it was like a porn, but it was his parents doing regular house chores? Was that Sal?
That sounds familiar. I don't think that was a punishment. I think that was just part of a challenge, but I do remember something like that. Yeah.
I don't remember. I just remember thinking that now. And then the one where Q was in White Castle and he had to like talk all like old English, and then his dad came in.
That was the first episode. The pilot episode. Yep.
I didn't know it was that early.
Yeah, I think Sal's dad was in the most. Joe's parents were dead, I believe, by the time that the show started filming. So only 3 of them had their parents. But I think it was, you saw Sal's dad a lot.
Yeah, and they even had Sal's dad in the movie.
Yeah, yep, they did. Well, there you go. That is more than just like 3 punishments. We covered a full season worth of punishments in this episode. So if you can find a way to work those punishments into your April Fool's plans with your friends, go for it. You have fun. You torture your poor friends. See if they're still friends with you afterwards.
Yep. Marry your friends' sisters. Go for it.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, you should marry Brian's sister. That'll teach him. So, speaking of friends, last week we had my wife that I married, that's how wives work, and my sister-in-law came on to this episode. We talked about Friends, and my wife had trivia about Friends. So and that was a great episode. If you haven't listened to it, make sure to listen to that. But which actor of the 6 from the show Friends didn't have to audition for his role? And that was David Schwimmer. They just like, we want him for Ross. He is Ross. And he absolutely was. Killed it.
Before we move on, I also have to give out. I have to once again say thank you to Trisha for not screwing me over for that at the end and making me lose Chandler as my number 1, because she had the veto, and I was like, this can't happen again.
I could see, like, okay, so the other episode we had where we did this was the Office one. We had both Paul and Andrew on for that. And I could see both of them just to get you doing that. I could be that like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna veto it because plus that was her number one pick too. Her number one was Phoebe. So like she could have in a way, quote unquote, won her the episode.
And I saved my veto specifically for Chandler. I said, I used one on Janice. I was gonna use the other one on Chandler. Hey, Chandler and Janice.
But that was a great use of the veto, or that would have been a great strategy if she wanted to employ it, but it was kind of her to not.
Yeah, so thank you again. I appreciate it. I don't think you're listening, but if you are.
But Brian, she'll be there for you, okay? When the rain starts to fall. All right. Well, this week Impractical Jokers. So Impractical Jokers had a number of celebrity guests on there. In the first season, Rosie O'Donnell popped up as Q, Q 2.0. We actually Eric Andre is going to be like, there's a behind the scenes picture with Eric Andre that he is going to be the fourth Joker for at least one of the episodes. I wonder if they're going to do that with multiple guest stars to be like the fourth Joker since Joe has left the show. But Gary Busey has been on there a couple different times, and it's always fun when he stops by. But in his first appearance on the show, he throws water into the face of one of the Jokers. So which Joker did he douse with water in his first appearance on Impractical Jokers?
And why?
I love the why. Oh man, it's Gary Busey they show like in both of the episodes that Gary Busey stops, and I think it's only 2, but then they show him at the very end of the episode, like how he's talking to them, and he's just going on and on about stuff. I'm like, Gary Busey is nuts, man. This guy, he's got a very different way of thinking.
He does.
Just like us.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, let us know. We talked about a lot of Impractical Jokers punishments. Did we get all the ones that you love, or was there some that we left out that didn't talk about that you're like, guys, this is the best or the worst, or like, why would anyone ever try and do this punishment? Let us know. And we want to hear from you. Next week, we are talking about, speaking of Impractical Jokers or Survivor at the beginning of the episode, we're talking about what some of our best reality TV shows are. Yeah, there are some good ones. They're not all terrible. My favorite is The Truman Show. You might even be on it right now. You don't know. Maybe it's The Brian Show. Great. Now I'm going to get silenced. I've revealed too much.
I feel like if my life would be more interesting if it was a TV show.
Like, hey, I've lived this life for 30 years. I know I know how boring it is. So
yeah.
But no one wants to watch a guy watch The Office for the 90th time.
And some of these reality shows are good, and some of them are bad, which makes them good. Like some of the worst reality shows, I don't know what it was about the early 2000s and those MTV reality shows. We are going to get into some of those.
Oh, goody. Those are ones. Okay, I love you guys, and I love our listeners, and I love my wife, and I love anyone who would watch those, but I do judge a little bit. Like, if you watch some of these really bad reality TV shows, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I'm conditioned to judge you a little bit. You can feel free to judge me for all of my misdoings that I have, which are many. I don't need to give you a list. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. Well, I would hope so. They're pretty judge-worthy. But until next time, make sure you're watching out for that episode. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.